All right, guys, we're live in the DC newsroom. This tropical music is only appropriate to me because I'm thinking we should all have a drink in our hand, maybe a hurricane. It's Fat Tuesday, guys. Happy Fat Tuesday, the beginning of Mardi Gras. Celebrations in full force in New Orleans. We have some video of that from this morning. Let me show you what we took in, guys, from this morning. A lot of partiers, revelers. There they are atop various floats going down on their parade down Bourbon Street. Now, let me tell you, I was actually hard pressed to find some people in the newsroom that have been to Mardi Gras, that have their own stories and experiences, but luckily I found a couple, so eventually they'll come over, give me a little insight to what all goes down there, because I've never experienced it myself, which is interesting, I know. But in a moment, we're gonna have Sam come over from the web department. We're gonna talk a little bit more about some social stories, some web stuff that we've been working on. But you can see here from the video, this was just earlier in the morning. It was just starting up, tens of thousands of people on the streets. They're getting ready for that rowdy fun, letting the good times roll down there. We had some king cake on set this morning. We had Mardi Gras food, po' boys, beignets, all the good stuff from New Orleans. So we're getting excited in the newsroom for that. I'm telling you, there's a ton of sugar in here between Valentine's Day and tomorrow being the start of it all, today being Fat Tuesday. It's so amazing how it coincides because technically it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, but also Ash Wednesday, right? So the beginning of Lent, the end of Carnival, and we go into the Easter season. So it's definitely an interesting time for sure. We're gonna have some more live pictures. Like I mentioned, this was earlier this morning with some coverage that we had from cameras down there, but eventually we'll have some more live shots of what's going on down there. I know it gets started early and there's sort of a peak and there's a lot of stuff going on, and then, you know, we'll see what kind of action we get. But take a look at this raw video. for now, and then we're going to jump in with some more news stories coming up later today. We're going to see what is happening and breaking live. I know that earlier this morning, Vice President Pence spoke at the National Museum for African American History and Culture. Just a little speech there, which was a cool little thing to watch. So we're going to throw that up in a little bit. We're going to follow Mardi Gras today, get some stories from inside the newsroom, and yeah, we'll keep it on this parade for now, guys. Check out this scene here from just a few hours ago. All right, guys, we're back. We're live in the newsroom here. I'm joined by Sam in our web department. What's up,
Hi.
Sam?
How's it going?
So we're watching this video from the partiers down in New Orleans from earlier this morning. It's almost live. It was just a few moments ago, and this is what we got going on, guys. It's Mardi Gras, obviously French for Fat Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, whatever you want to call it. The beginning of the Lenten season going into Easter, and I'm curious who's on the stream that has been to this celebration. I'm telling you, it was hard pressed for me to find people that have been not to solely to the city of New Orleans, but to the party that is Mardi Gras in the city.
Yeah.
I found a couple, but you've never been.
No, I haven't been, but I have been to New Orleans. It's an awesome city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we're a bunch of nerds. I don't know, in the newsroom.
No,
we love to travel. I don't know. It's just, I think the thing for me, I would love to go. I also feel like it's just so many people. There's so many people, but you know, like that's whole part of it. I do have plenty of friends that have been, and you know, just like. Yeah.
It's tough to find. I mean, I think it depends to what business you're in when you have time off and stuff. I was talking to one of the anchors who was just like, I can never go during sweeps because that's a February time that they can't get off.
Yeah.
But I mean, this type of thing, I've never been myself, totally up my alley. I love awesome cultural experiences like this. Of course, it stems from originally, you know, a religious background, a religious theme.
I don't know, it's kind of like Christmas. It's like, it's based on a religious thing, and then it became a whole lot more than that. So
so it became a whole lot more. It did become a whole lot more than that with the food and the beads and the everything and the king cake. But obviously, it's the start here of Lent, where Christians who usually fast during Lent, this was their last big hurrah to obviously eat the fatty, all the foods, and then save their leaner things for that little season leading up to Easter. But today, or it happens to begin on February 13th, which is the day before Valentine's Day. So it just happens to coincide.
All these holidays going on at once.
It just happens to coincide with another holiday. It happens to coincide with a holiday that is full of yummy, delicious, exorbitant foods and sweetness and chocolate and things. But now you can see here, obviously these groups come together. They're called crews, I believe, and they're independent nonprofit organizations, private organizations that come together, that form their, you know, whatever it is, their display, their performance, and they march down and they're part of the parade. And there's multiple parades throughout the day, so we should be seeing a bunch of feats coming in. But some
it's
cool
like
pictures.
Thanksgiving all day long.
Totally. And some great pictures because it's so visual and it's so great. I wish I had the sound on their music. Unfortunately, we didn't have any sound on this feed, so we just took the live coverage from down there this morning. But if we do have that, of course, we'll accompany it with the sound. But yeah, it's celebrated most famously in New Orleans, but there are other cities with French heritage and culture and stuff that do this. They do their own celebrations.
I don't even know if we've done any research. Does Haiti do anything like this? They have a lot of French heritage, I bet. I mean, a lot of Louisiana and the Creole culture stems from, you know, kind of this Haitian Creole culture. So,
good point.
Interesting to me.
It's a big revelry. People throw it's like beads, cups, coins, stuffed animals. People take their shirts off.
Yeah.
There's a lot of,
and then there's also, like, I know a lot of Polish Catholic communities do a lot of things. I want to say there's like dumplings called paczki.
Okay.
That are that's more of like not necessarily Mardi Gras, but definitely like a Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I've been to a couple of Mardi Gras parties in my friends' churches. I
love the colors. It's just so visual and awesome. Look at that beautiful day down there.
And it's kind of taken over all of New Orleans, even if you go not during Mardi Gras, because I've been, and you know, the fleur-de-lis, the colors, the symbols, you know, colors. It kind of like extends through the rest of the year, you know, even if it's not.
Right, it's because it's a big part of their culture. That's so cool. And I talked to some people in the newsroom. I was walking around like, who's been? A lot of people have been to New Orleans, obviously. But not many just specifically for the celebration. But you can see it is a quite crowded event. People come from all over. It's become sort of more this big thing that people do come for. So it's a little more touristy, right? A lot more touristy. Probably was for a long time. But yeah, some cool pictures. And it looks like a gorgeous day down there. Meanwhile, we're up here, pretty chilly, getting ready for Valentine's Day.
We're up here in DC. Meanwhile.
But if you're on the stream, let me know where you are, guys, and what you're where you're watching from, what you're celebrating today and tomorrow, any big plans for both the holidays. Kathy's saying I'm good. She doesn't want to go enjoy some of this partying, but look at the cars going by. It's definitely
I wonder what the security detail is like, because you know, like this has been kind of like public events have been, you know, a big draw, and you know, we always have 5Ks in DC, different protests and events, but oh hey.
There we go. Nice. The camera finds the people.
Yeah. It's like at the baseball games.
Yes. No, totally. We were trying to find a good video of this, and like I said, this is footage from just less than a few hours ago. A couple, and it was what we had coming in live from the celebrations, which obviously kicked off there pretty early. It's going to be going on throughout the whole day. It must be a fun time to be down there. I have a good friend, actually, now that I think about it, down there. I'm going to shoot him a message, see if he'll Skype in with me. I forgot he was going to it for our stream, so we can get a little first-hand look at what's going on in Mardi Gras. But I do want to, talk to some people in the newsroom. We'll see who can come over to talk about their experience. Like I mentioned, not a ton coming in political-wise. Vice President Pence was at the African American Museum this morning making some remarks, so we're going to take that in.
Was it for Black History Month?
I believe it possibly was associated with that. I have to check into that, actually. This camera's kind of going everywhere now. I believe so. But reminder of that, guys, we are celebrating Black History Month. Of course, it's February, so many things going on, right? President's Day, Valentine's Day tomorrow, President's Day is later in the month. Black History Month, where on Fridays, we're going to still be having our guests here on the digital show, which is great. 2 Fridays ago, we had homeschooling mom, Trina from Baltimore, who talked about her book and her life and how she's been an inspiration to the African American community. We had to skip a week last week. Unfortunately, we had a conflict. We couldn't book a guest, but we do have one coming up this week.
Oh, nice.
Another influential figure in the Black community.
Do you know who that'll be?
Her name's Karen, and she has a whole slew of accolades and background, and we'll tell you more about that as we tease it out this week. But yeah, it's coming up. So it's exciting. Booking some guests for the week. We celebrate a lot in February, right? It's such a busy month.
And it's short.
And it is short.
It's short. And there's a lot of birthdays in the news.
So many birthdays. Everybody's like, why am I paying full rent in February when it's a short month? Remember everyone saying that?
Oh, I wasn't in on that combo.
I mean, it's just like the kind of like going around social, like, why do we pay rent? But are you working on anything special in the web today? Or
we're working on the same things as you. There were some interesting stories from the night before. There's a cool story on our Facebook page. There's a pop-up bar that's doing a Black Panther
for the movie.
Yeah, that should be really neat. I'm not sure when that starts. I think it might actually be going up now as the movie is going to be underway, so that'll be kind of neat. And there's another story on our website. Believe it was Lindsay or Marina who did, they've been following a story about a man who had the wrong ashes from his cousin's passing.
I heard about
and there was a mix-up, but I think we were able to track down the person who had the right ashes. So that's also a story you can check out on Fox 5 DC.
Quite a personal one there.
Yeah.
The people right. I remember that was on our morning show this morning.
Yes.
That's some good ones. Okay, good.
And then there were a couple other ones that did well. Cadbury. This is a good one. I think I was telling you.
We mentioned this yesterday.
We did? Okay.
You can repeat it.
Cadbury in the UK they have 4, I believe, at least 4 positions open for part-time Cadbury chocolate taste testers.
I know, I love that.
So
we were chatting about
that was kind of a neat
I would be down for
story.
That.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Lots of food in the office. I didn't bring any of that. We had an awesome New Orleans style chef on the show, of course, talking about po' boys and beignets and gumbo. We were talking about this earlier, and shrimp and grits and all that great Southern food that these people are definitely down there enjoying. And you can enjoy them wherever you are, really, if you get the right person. And they came on our show and they had some awesome food for us. So I didn't get to try any, but it's definitely heavy, really savory food.
Yeah, actually, there is a new restaurant. Well, it's not new, but that would have been nice for us to have here.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant in Rockville, or now they moved to Gaithersburg, but it's called Addie's, and they have like a kind of a Creole style.
Kathy, I know you're local in Virginia, but this is in Maryland, so at least close to DMV.
Yeah, I wonder how many well, I haven't been to the one in Rockville. It was called Addie's in Rockville, and let me see if we can pull up any information on it, but I can get back to you in a second. Yeah, I do.
If you want, you can look it up.
Well, my sister works for the restaurant group that owns this restaurant. So my sister works for Republic in Tacoma Park. For anyone who's local,
Anyone's
I highly
local.
recommend it.
Everyone's kind of mixed on the street.
Yeah, the company is Black's Restaurant Group, and they have several restaurants through the DC, Maryland area. None in Virginia. I'm sorry, Kathy. But they have a restaurant in Rockville, and they closed it, but then they reopened it in Potomac. So, and they have more of like, I think they had more of a New Orleans theme in the last place, but now it's more Americana. But they still have really good seafood and kind of more like Southern inspired stuff.
That.
So
Love the Creole inspired. Look at these colors. Speaking of all the stuff in New Orleans, there we go. We still have this feed going on. I know we can't actually bring up the sound on the interviews that you're seeing, but as we go back, we pan over to the colors of the parade. It's so cool to watch. It's really just visually stimulating. I love it.
Yeah, very vibrant.
Looking forward to getting more kind of live footage of Mardi Gras in on our feed. We're going to kind of keep this up for a second. Did you find more info?
Yeah,
there's your restaurant.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're in Potomac. They just moved to a new place. And let me see what's on the menu.
Good stuff.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Look at that float. It's so lavish with the crown and the king and the palm tree.
Dude, there are a lot of different traditions.
Yeah. I'm really curious about this. I'm doing more research as we kind of speak on the show and prior as we came up in the stream, because I was like, I want to know more about the origin, right, of some of these decorations and floats and why the crown and why this and that. So I'm continuing to educate myself as we speak, as I watch this and as I read into it a little bit more. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to contact my friend who's down there and just see if he's in some sort of state where he could Skype in with me.
Right.
My friend Joe, who's down there, I'm gonna message him, I think. We'll probably pull this up full screen, let you guys watch a little more, and then we'll switch it out a little bit. But I'm going to contact him to see if he'll contact me. And anything else we want to kind of chat about or work on?
Yeah, actually, I think the discussion we had earlier was kind of interesting. The Sports Illustrated discussion. Yes. They brought it up on
Let me see if we can pull it up.
They brought up
that was a good one. Good call.
This there's a new issue of there's a new swimsuit edition of Sports Illustrated. They talked about this on Good Day DC, and Danielle Harrington is the model.
Harrington is the model.
Yeah.
I actually.
And we were talking about it, but then also they brought up some of the Me Too movement stuff. So there was kind of like this debate of like, can we have women who are models, but then also...
Let's take a quick break from the parade and go over to this here. So guys, here is the Sports Illustrated new swimsuit model. I was actually following, there's sort of like a path to be a rookie model, right? And I was following some of the girls that were working on that, and they were like the 5 finalists, and I followed some of them on social, and just kind of seeing how that whole path went. It's really interesting. And I wasn't really following Danielle's track and her social media as much. She ends up being the cover girl. Very cool cover with the splash, and she owns it and all that. And it's an awesome shot. She has it all laid out there on the cover, as Sports Illustrated does, which I think is amazing. And then inside the issue, they do talk about the Me Too movement, as they should, as so many things are, as magazines and whether it's woman related or not, are talking about this issue. It's a political issue. It's a hot button topic. Everything like that. And the question, I guess our anchors were kind of debating this and talking about it on air this morning, and it's worth us chatting about too, is, you have this juxtaposition. You have this female model on the cover looking awesome, hanging it all out, and then we talk about the movement where and I'm going to just say my personal opinion, I think they're mutually exclusive. I think Allison Seymour on our air summed it up perfectly. She said, this should happen, this cover, this type of let me be proud about my body should happen, but because things go awry and we have predation by, sexual predators, we have this Me Too movement. So it's two things to kind of talk about. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you have the whole idea, well, I was saying this to you earlier, that there's the whole idea of, women who are models, who put themselves in the spotlight, whether you're an actor or an actress, whether you're a model or you work in fashion. There's a lot of women who, they want to work in a field where they have to be exposed, or it's just common to show some skin, like being a model is concerned. But then does that warrant attack? You know, does that make yourself, you know, it's kind of like it is kind of a tied in thing that where like as soon as you put yourself in the spotlight, whether it's on social media or otherwise, you open yourself up to comments from the public, and that's where you get, you know, innocent things like you look good to, you know, oh, you should lose some more weight.
True. We've seen celebrities go through that all the time.
Yeah. Women who are pregnant get chastised often for showing themselves. There's been a lot of stuff, even with people who work in news, in local markets, anchors who are pregnant, anchors who are, you know, overweight. You know, there are people who work in news who are all different kinds of body sizes, not just models who are, you know, on primetime TV. You know, we're average people. Right. So that's a whole other part of discussion. But then the idea is, if you're going to expose yourself, does that make it okay for people to make comments about you? Like, does one? My personal opinion is no.
To make bad comments.
Bad comments. Yeah, if it's yeah, I mean, people are going to talk no matter what. Right. But you know, I still don't think it's cool. But you know, there are women who have been chastised because they said that they were sexually assaulted or raped, and they were wearing, you know, a tank top and a mini skirt. But you know, there are also women in other countries who wear full-headed, you know, headscarves, and you know, are very modest and still get assaulted and attacked for just being a woman. Totally. So I think that it's a double-edged sword. I mean, just the fact that you're a woman in this society kind of makes you privy, which is the whole point of the Me Too. It makes you privy.
Yeah, I know, it is the one of the Me Too movement. You're right. Yeah, I thought that's a really interesting way to put it. It's an interesting discussion because, yeah, that just sums it up. I think she should be able to, like the cover just says right there, own it. You see the small writing there. Kate Upton brings it. So Kate Upton's also in the issue, and Allie Raisman, who we've been talking about with the Larry Nassar trial, who made that powerful statement. She's also, I think, within the issue, so I'm not quite sure, but it's out. This is sort of the headline for today, that it's out there, and they do discuss that movement inside, and that makes sense. It's all linked. The Nassar trial, which we brought to you guys live on the stream. You guys a lot of you guys were on there for that. Kathy wondering what we're doing for Valentine's Day. Let's take it back in. No more Sports Illustrated today. Well, that was good, but tomorrow is Wednesday. It's Valentine's Day. I think we have a few tricks up our sleeve for social media tomorrow. We're gonna
we have
do
some
cool stuff on
content
Instagram and content on Snapchat and Insta and our Facebook and our Twitter. So keep tuned to that, Fox 5 DC. And then personally, nothing really concrete right now. Do you have anything? I have a busy week.
Well, yeah, I work through tomorrow. Tomorrow's my Friday, and I work on the weekends, so I'm back there. But my boyfriend, his birthday is Friday, and then Valentine's Day is the day before, so we kind of combine.
Oh, crazy! Combine everything. So many fun things.
We've done other things in the past where we like took a trip or did something together, but we're probably just gonna get dinner somewhere. So
that's great. Yeah. I always tell you, I might be in the minority here in the newsroom or in life, but I'm one that loves Valentine's Day. I love the Day of Love. I've always loved it. You know, with or without a relationship, I've loved it. So much so, I'm not even kidding. And Mom, if you're on this, you know this. I had to do a report on a saint in high school, and I picked Saint Valentine because I was like, what am I interested in? What do I want to research? What am I interested in the history of? And it was that. And I think it sort of has defined who I am for sure as a person. Like, it really has. And
how?
I think people that know me would know that I would have done that report. I just love. I love emotion and love and feeling, and I love this holiday. I really have always been a lover of it. I am definitely in the minority. You go over to my desk, you're going to see those heart-shaped chocolates. You're going to see whatever else on my desk that I'm hopefully sharing with my neighbor over there. But I do have fun with it. I think it's going to be great. I have yet to kind of plan my night around it. But I have a busy weekend. It's funny that it comes smack in the middle of the work week, right? So it's a Wednesday, so it's tough to kind of do anything huge, but it's always fun to go to a dinner or celebrate with whomever you have that you love, family, girlfriends, guys, whatever you got. So hopefully you guys all enjoy it. Thanks for your comments, guys. What are you guys doing? Let us know. Kathy, you were asking us. Now I want to know what you're doing. Hopefully celebrating it and being happy in it. It's always a fun day to kind of remember people that you love, no matter who they are, family and loved ones near and far. So
yeah,
I'm excited for it.
It's a good perspective to have.
I guess we're all in black today, and I was like, we should be wearing red and pink, and I think we will be.
I have it saved for tomorrow.
Yeah. You do? Yeah. Oh, good. Good. So much festivity. Speaking of that, we'll go back to this camera in Mardi Gras here. This is the footage that we have from this morning, and
Is that a reporter?
Yeah, there are some reporter hits in the middle.
Well, I didn't know if he was dressed up. I saw that he was dressed up.
Might be. Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, we didn't have any. This was sort of just a raw, overarching sort of aerial view. So if you do see people come up, we're not going to have sound on it, but it kind of gives you the look as to what the floats looked like a couple hours ago and how it goes from here. So happy Mardi Gras to all who celebrate. We're going to, I guess, bring it full screen, and then I'll switch it up. We'll go a little politics as well. I want to show you guys the Vice President's speech from this morning, and we'll talk to some more people in the newsroom, and keep it real in here and keep it going for the afternoon. Let Sam do some web stuff, and then if you have any cool pop-in stories, you can come over and chat about them.
Sure.
But anyway, guys, great to have you on. Happy Mardi Gras, happy Tuesday, going into a great full week, and Kathy's hanging out with her kid. That's great for Valentine's Day. I know that you always talk about him on the stream. Yeah, we'll keep you guys abreast of anything that comes in that's breaking or live. Like here we go. This is like an example of the reporter hit that we won't have, unfortunately, but a little more footage for you, and then we'll switch it over to political. Good?
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thank you very much. One of the best things about Mardi Gras, and one of the best things about Fat Tuesday, is you meet people from all over the world, all over the country. I kind of ran into a couple here on the side of St. Charles Avenue. This young lady right here, as you can see, aloha, visiting from Maui, Hawaii. First Mardi Gras.
Yes, my first Mardi Gras. Loving it! Woo!
Tell me your name.
Anna.
How long have you been in New Orleans?
Since Saturday.
Since Saturday. So you were kind of building up to this.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. What's been the best part about this so far for you?
All the nice people. It's been fabulous.
And so you're going to be here from Maui until when?
Until this next coming Saturday.
Oh, so you made a little bit of vacation out of it. You got to go back. Although I bet the weather in Hawaii and Maui is a lot better than this here.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think an invite's coming soon. Thank you very much. I just got laid. What? Can I say that on TV? Well, too late. All right, so from Maui, we're going to go to the upper northeast, Buffalo. They came down here to escape the cold, and they're going to be here for a while in the southern part of the United States. Tell me your name from Buffalo, right?
Karen.
Karen.
And Kathy.
Okay, first Mardi Gras?
Oh, definitely first Mardi Gras.
And your thoughts so far?
OMG. Wow. New Orleans has it going on. Lovely, lovely city, great people, and wow.
So Mardi Gras was the excuse for them coming down here, but we also know that the weather in Buffalo right now is not quite like it is right now. Have you heard what the temperature is there?
No. 21 today.
21
Maybe
degrees?
that's the high.
Oh, that's balmy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Balmy 21. That's not bad. What's been your favorite part about this so far?
Everything. It's amazing. The parades, I thought there was one or two parades. No way. It's just unbelievable. It's so exciting.
And you've been here since when?
Last week.
Yeah, 1st of February we got here.
Okay, so the best thing about these ladies from Buffalo is that they got a huge itinerary, not just stopping in New Orleans. There's some more places to go, right?
The food is incredible, and the people. I mean, people from all over the country, all over the world, and everybody's sharing love. It's awesome.
So where are you going from here?
We head to Florida and then Georgia.
Have you noticed anything similar about their destinations? They're all warm spots. They live in Buffalo. Why wouldn't it be? Let's take a look at the parade marching by here. Morning, ladies. Happy Mardi Gras.
Hold on.
So I was under the impression that we did not have sound on this, but now that we have the music and you heard that little live shot or live sort of report with that those two women who it was their first time at Mardi Gras, this is awesome. I'm so glad we have some live looks at what it's like to be down there. So we're gonna listen in and enjoy this ourselves.
Nice.
Hopefully you guys are enjoying the feed. Let's listen in.
I think I just learned a new word. I don't know what it means, but it sounds fantastic. Happy Mardi Gras to you. That's not Jeff. All right, let's toss the break. More Mardi Gras 2018 here from Gallier Hall and all over the city coming up after this break. Stay with us.
How you making out, baby?
I'm good, baby.
Happy Mardi Gras.
to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk over him.
Hey, Aaron or Dana? Aaron or Dana? Can y'all hear me? Aaron or Dana? Hey, Christy, can you hear me? But he's in office a little longer, and I guess LaToya Cantrell will get one less Mardi Gras, technically. They're telling the first... Okay. All right, Mayor Landrieu and Chief Harrison have arrived here at Gallier Hall. The mayor telling the First Lady and his kids hello, welcoming everybody to Mardi Gras. Mitch Landrieu's last Mardi Gras as mayor of New Orleans.
He's kind of getting a bonus one this year, right? Because of the extended term. Is that right?
Well, technically he's getting his all of his years, but he's in office a little longer, and I guess LaToya Cantrell will get one less Mardi Gras, technically. So the mayor and chief will kind of address everyone here, then get off their horses. Actually, the chief usually continues to go on. The mayor will get off and remain at Gallier Hall for the rest of the day.
And the crowd is really filled up here at Gallier.
It is starting to get a little crowded.
It's warming up. The sun's out. Zulu's about 2 blocks from here.
Good morning, First Lady.
And there's Chief Harrison also addressing everyone here as well, too, and the First Lady as well.
First responders and law enforcement agencies that came to help us. We have state police, we have sheriff's departments and other police departments all over the city right now, especially downtown. I want to say a special thank you, because all of us are working to make sure you're safe and you have the best possible Mardi Gras. So once again, happy Mardi Gras.
And it is. I mean, the police, the time they put in.
Y'all have a great parade. Zulu's right behind us. Thank you so much.
All right, Zulu is almost here at Gallier Hall. But back to the police. I mean, they work long shifts, keeping everybody safe. It's
Did you see that? The mayor just winked at you. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He gave a little wink to Lee Zurich. That was sweet.
There's the mayor finishing up by Gallier Hall. He'll get off that horse and come back over here at Gallier Hall for the rest of the day.
You notice when they're about to leave office, they always get a little bit nicer, don't they?
Huh? Oh, David.
This is why you didn't want me up
Are
here,
you
right?
here all day, David?
All day.
Oh,
5 more hours.
goodness.
Continuing coverage.
Let
me tell you.
All right, and that's what we have, guys, from that feed. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, that was earlier this morning, but how cool is that to see Mayor Mitch Landrieu there, his last Mardi Gras, coming in on the horse, speaking to the crowd, super fun. The reporters were all up about that, and security, of course, following behind him on the horses. Lots of police in full force in their presence there for Mardi Gras, as would be expected. Now, I want to mention Representative Steve Scalise was down there with his family, of course, back in New Orleans to celebrate Mardi Gras. He's actually back up here in D.C. today. I'm not actually sure when he came back, because we found out.
Well, this photo he said was on the this was on the 10th, so it must have been a few days ago. So they was probably there before, like. You know, they've been doing, I'm sure, stuff all week.
Celebrations.
So
he was there with his family on the 10th. He tweeted it on the 10th. He's back here tonight because we have a very special Mardi Gras chef food fun party experience at Union Market, which is an awesome event space and venue over in Northeast DC. And I believe we're hearing rumblings that he's going to be making an appearance there. And we'll have a reporter sent out there tonight. So on our evening broadcast and hopefully on our website, if we push that out, you'll get to see a little snippet of that. And Rep. Scalise, who of course was injured in that congressional baseball shooting, which was wild this past summer. I remember that day was so crazy.
Yeah.
You were probably working in Baltimore during
I
that,
was,
right?
yeah, but we still covered a good bit of it.
Yeah.
And we covered a lot of stuff because one of the responding Secret Service police officers was from the Baltimore area, so we were covering her recovery. Crystal Griner is from the Baltimore area, I believe, and she, I guess, commutes down to Capitol Hill or maybe she's from. I forget if she was from Baltimore originally and now lives in the D.C. area. But so we were following her recovery as well as that of Representative Scalise. So yeah, it was still big news. It was kind of a nationwide thing, and because we also want to make sure that our politicians are safe, and any sort of injury, any sort of shooting.
Yes, I remember that
causes
day.
alarm.
Yeah, and if you weren't one of the regulars on the stream, you may have missed that this summer, but that was just a crazy one. I remember coming into the newsroom and immediately we went up early morning and we had reporters out there and we had people following and talking to these senators. Senator Jeff Flake was there and others that were just coming off that baseball field having experienced the trauma that they just experienced. So Steve Scalise was one of them. He's back in D.C. for tonight's celebrations. And that's that. So that's very exciting. Like I said, if we have any more live pictures of Mardi Gras, which I very much hope we do, get them in. I'm sitting here with Sam being like, I love this. I want to cover this. I wish I was down there interviewing some people. But you could hear from the reporter's words and his excitement that, it's fun to interview some people who are there for their first time. And it's a cool cultural coming together community event. Another story before we get rid of this, totally unrelated to Mardi Gras. Let's talk about this. Sam, we were talking about this morning.
This is a total shock factor story.
Shock factor. Get ready for it. We know you're YouTube, you're digital people. You can handle this. Check out this picture. Viewer discretion advised. Here we go. 14 worms pulled out of a woman's eye after a rare infection in Oregon. Guys, an Oregon woman is being called the first known human case of this parasitic infection spread by flies. Now, I've heard of stuff that you can get very rarely in places like Peru and Bolivia, where there's a specific type of bug that can lay eggs in your eye.
There's more cases of malaria.
Things like that, and parasites and whatnot. But this is a 26-year-old woman in Oregon that scientists reported this case on Monday for. Her name's Abby Beckley. She was diagnosed in 2016 with Thalassia gullosa, which is a type of eye worm, and then this happened, and it made recent news. What do we think about this? Too graphic for our stream? What do you guys think?
How did she get that?
I don't know, but I've heard of these crazy things, and that's not even really a depiction. I guess you can kind of see something, unless it's just a stock photo. I can't quite tell.
Was there? I thought there was another photo.
Oh, it shows. Oh wait, because it's showing that.
No, yeah, I thought there was a picture of like the parasite up close that I thought I had seen, but
yeah, this circle is added, and it shows the inflammation from the infection that caused this type of eye worm to be in her eye. Now, this is an eye worm normally found in cattle.
Oh.
And then it was found inside the eyelid of this woman. But
does she work on it? Oh, so let's see what we have. That she, let's see. She had worms, and they found them.
And 14 tiny ones were found in her left eye.
So it's face flies. Okay.
I've heard of something like this, and maybe it is similar to this thing that I heard about. With
she had been horseback riding and fishing. Okay, that's what happened.
Interesting, but not in like Central America. In like here.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
So it was in Gold Beach, Oregon, a coastal cattle farming area, and remember, this worm is normally found in cattle. So.
Because you're along in Oregon, you're along the coast, and there's more. I don't know, it's like being on a seaside town here on the East Coast. There's there's water.
There's stuff that can breed. Obviously, scary things.
Oh my goodness.
Getting some
I'm glad she's okay.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a weird kind of health story, but we just wanted to tell you guys because it was circulating around our social media and people are talking about it. I'm seeing some more live pictures come in. No audio on this feed again of Mardi Gras, but I want to take them because before we know it, Mardi Gras is going to be over. So I think the live pictures are what's going to be good for us today, and then we'll go to some other news. So while we have it, let's take this live look at the parade. This is ongoing, and this is, like I mentioned, not pre-taped. So this is what we have. Unfortunately, no sound on this one.
We could try unless they brought it up
as
again.
I'm being told, which is a bummer because all these bands are playing. But we'll take what we can get and show you guys the live look at Mardi Gras. There it is. Check it out. And
that's so fun.
Enjoy for now. We're going to be here watching with you guys. Like I said, if we do get any sound or reports, we'll pull it up. But I want to hopefully hear from some people in the newsroom. We'll see who wants to contribute. And we'll listen in for anything that's coming in live as well. But this is the day today, man.
I wonder how much preparation goes into that
these
kind of stuff.
Teams and these crews, like I said, these crews of organizations that have their float, just like in any other parade, right? You have something that you're building, working on for X amount of time, and then you present it in full force with your display. There's all your costumes, the music involved, the practice, the flag throwing, the dancing, the everything. So it's a
very coordinated effort.
It is. Wouldn't that be cool though to say your crew performed in the Mardi Gras parade?
Yeah, but I'm sure there are ones that do it like every year. I mean, because if you live in New Orleans, it's such a part of the culture that like there are, I'm sure, regular teams that like do this all the time. Because I'm sure it takes more than just a few weeks to prepare. It takes a few months.
Right.
So I'm sure it's like an annual like people do Renfest every year.
Get ready for it for the year. Like what we're gonna do next year.
Yeah.
It's also cool though because you might want something that's topical, right? Maybe like a topical song or something that's relevant to like what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure they update, but I'm just saying like the dance moves and the choreography. So.
Yep. Oh my God.
Do any breaking news in the newsroom?
Okay. All right, guys, coming out of Fat Tuesday stuff for now, even though we do still have that live picture up, I really would prefer it with sound, so I'm going to see if I can find that for you, but if not, you know, we'll go back to that eventually. But hey, I want to alert you to a little bit of a breaking news situation that we were just listening to in D.C. Apparently, there are reports of some type of suspicious white powdery substance that was found in the offices of former President Obama, where he formerly held some offices at the World Wildlife Fund that's in DuPont Circle in D.C. area, and it looks like we might have some live pictures just of the scene outside that building. So I'm going to bring that up for now and update you with anything further. Here's a look at some of the fire trucks on hand and some other things that are going on in that area. But that's what we have for now.
And this is actually just yesterday. I don't know if we discussed it on here after I got off yesterday, but there was a white powdery substance that was also sent to the home of President Trump's son, Don Jr.
Yep.
And his wife, Vanessa Trump, opened the letter and had to be taken to the hospital, but as a precaution. I don't think she actually had any symptoms, but they just wanted to make sure everything was okay. So I don't know if the two are connected. I'm sure police are going to look into it, but obviously national security is always of concern, especially here in DC. But yeah, there's all, you know, it's interesting yesterday working with our New York affiliates, because the president has family and offices, you know, in New York, so it's not just a DC based kind of operation.
Right.
So, you know, both places are kind of
And it's interesting.
Interesting,
yeah, both of importance. It's interesting too if they do happen to be related, which who knows at this point. It's interesting that it's two separate things, right? It's the administration of Donald Trump and his son and his wife, and then a former office of former President Barack Obama.
Okay,
so that's interesting, right?
But they're still like things. You know.
But you know,
presidential
I'm
officials.
just thinking it's fascinating that, like, if they were connected, that it's someone out there just preying on, you know, officials in some way or something, because it doesn't seem to be one-sided per se. But yeah, they're the offices there. I'm actually kind of familiar with them. I've done some work inside that building before.
Oh yeah, there's the panda.
Oh yeah, you see
the World Wildlife
outside.
Fund panda. Yeah.
Yep. So that's the World Wildlife Fund, a beautiful office building that houses a lot of different offices and various things, not just that association itself. And I've done some work in there for some freelance work that I was working on a couple years ago inside that building, and it's right there in sort of South DuPont, North Foggy Bottom area, in between those two areas in Washington, D.C., Northwest, so close to Georgetown area. Big office building, lots of stuff going on, and kind of some tight one-way streets there too, so it looks like they're filling them up and they're probably blocking it off. You can see the caution tape there, and that's what's going on there. I don't think I have sound here. A little bit of just natural sound.
Well, the thing about being in DC is there's so many different agencies involved with, you know, whether it's local or, you know, national security kind of stuff. So there's always a lot of agencies involved, the Capitol, you know, Park Police, the DC Police themselves. Right. There's Secret Service, all those agencies. Yeah.
I'm trying to see now if I can find some. Find some footage of Mardi Gras with the sounds. I really want to hear it. We can bring it up together.
I love these guys in their socks, their basketball. I don't even know this getup.
Flipping it around here.
Yeah.
There it is. Live pictures there from Mardi Gras. Yeah, these guys look awesome. I would love to hear this. I wish we had some music. Bummer, but such is the way of taking in live feeds. You just never know what you're going to get.
Like a box of chocolates.
Exactly. We introed this little chocolate segment today in the morning show with that quote from Forrest Gump, and I loved it.
Oh, you guys did?
They did. F&M.
Well, it's perfect for it. So
it is. Oh, they look great. Well, these guys are talented, so we'll make sure we keep them up a little bit.
Well, Oh, excuse me.
All right, let's bring a split shot here of both of these scenes so you can kind of check into that. We'll watch a little bit of Mardi Gras, and then we'll watch the white powdery substance possibility thing.
So it's about 53 minutes. It is pool and you can stream.
Yeah. All right, guys, so obviously Mardi Gras in your upper right corner, no sound on that, which is unfortunate. But below our faces here is that look outside the World Wildlife Fund in DuPont area of Washington, D.C., where they're investigating that suspicious white powder. But I'm just seeing President Trump come up just moments ago with some words in the White House. So let's go over to him, and we'll keep sort of one of these feeds going so you can kind of see both at the same time. And then we'll check back in with you guys. Kathy, really quickly, a recap. The white powder incident is a possible suspicious powder found at the former office of former President Barack Obama in the DuPont area. So not sure what's happening there. We'll kind of look into that and keep you updated.
From a country that we're fighting, because somehow that doesn't work very well. But we hopefully won't have any conflicts, but we still have to consider that, and we have to look at the national defense, and we have to look at a steel industry. We cannot be without a steel industry. We cannot be without an aluminum industry. And so what we're talking about is tariffs and/or quotas. And I think maybe, Roy, would you like to start? We've discussed this over the past. Would you have any suggestion?
Well, Mr. President, I think we do need to be careful here that we don't start a reciprocal battle on tariffs. You know, we make aluminum and we make steel in Missouri, but we buy a lot of aluminum and we buy a lot of steel as well, from bass boats to beer cans. There's a lot of aluminum out there. We've got an aluminum manufacturer that closed down, but with special utility electric rates is reopening under new management. And so clearly we're concerned about those new jobs, but also concerned about all the jobs that, whether it's in the electric steel area or the aluminum area, are very, very price sensitive here.
Okay, good, and I understand that very well. One thing I do want to tell you, we just got this notice. General Motors in Korea announces the first step in necessary restructuring. They're going to GM Korea Company announced today that it will cease production and close its Gunsan plant in May of 2018, and they're going to move back to Detroit. You don't hear these things except for the fact that Trump became president, believe me. You wouldn't be hearing that. So they're moving back from Korea to Detroit. They're moving also, you saw Chrysler moving from Mexico to Michigan. And you have many other companies. They all want to be where the action is. The big tax cuts had a big impact. And Kevin knows that maybe better than anybody, but it had a big impact on that decision. But when you see that General Motors, we have a very bad trade deal with Korea, very, very bad trade deal. It's a deal that it's incompetent that somebody could have made a deal like that. So we have a horrible trade deal with Korea. But now even before we do something with that, because we're negotiating the trade deal with Korea, and we'll either negotiate a fair deal or we're going to terminate the deal. But before we do that, already General Motors is coming back into Detroit. That is a really significant statement. Many others to follow from many other countries. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, let me tell you that 2,800 people were laid off in my district in 2015 in a steel plant that's been operating for over 100 years. The concern that we have is that steel plant produces the what's known as the oil country tubular goods, OCTG. OCTG, when we're doing the exploration and everything like that in oil that we are, but Korea has dumped 200% in the last year in an overabundance of into that particular market. Because of that, we're not able to get those 2,800 jobs back. And like I said, those have been there. That group of people there.
So where did it go? Went to Korea?
All of the products they're even coming from Korea now that we've turned up. And unless we use, the power under 232, because if something goes south, now all of a sudden while we're trying to become energy independent, but these plants don't turn up overnight, and we've got to try to do something to work for a long-term goal with that.
The Korean agreement, as you know, Mike, and most of the people at this table, that was done by the last administration. It was supposed to produce 150 to 200,000 jobs, and it did for Korea. For us, it produced nothing but losses. It's a horrible deal. All you have to do is look at it. You know it's going to be bad. So the Korea deal was a disaster. It was supposed to be good for us, and it turned out to be very bad for us. And just, you're one example of it, but there are many examples all over the country. So I just think the General Motors moving back into Detroit is just a fantastic thing. That's just a sign of many other companies to come. Mike Pence, would you have something to say?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank all of the Republican and Democrats taking time to be here and their profound interest in this issue. To your point, this is about our economy, but it's about national security. And the President directed a 232 review to determine whether or not our national security has been affected by the dumping of steel and aluminum. And today is very much the President's desire, our administration's desire, to hear from each of you and the perspectives that will also inform the decisions that the President will make. I think that it's fair to say that we all support national security. I think that's evidenced by the recent budget agreement that the President helped drive and Republicans and Democrats have supported for a historic increase in our national defense. But we also all support American jobs. And we very much look forward to your counsel as the President approaches this decision. And I appreciate the bipartisan spirit of this meeting and the conversation that will follow.
And really, as Mike said, I want to hear from both sides. This is why we have a lot of great representatives, both Democrats and Republicans. I want to hear from both sides before we make the decision. In one case, you're going to create jobs. You may have a higher price, it may be a little bit higher, but you're going to have jobs. In the other case, you may have a lower price, but you're not going to have jobs. It's going to be made in China and other places. So those are big decisions, but to me, jobs are very important. Todd, do you have something to say?
Mr. President, thank you for having us here today. I represent a state that is not only a major manufacturer of steel. We have U.S. Steel, right. ArcelorMittal, and others who are manufacturing it. But we have the downstream users, which you alluded to. So clearly, you understand the need to balance the two, yep. Come up with a balanced approach here. I think the main target, and I'll just speak plainly with you, sir, should be China. They're violating the international rules, stealing our intellectual property, overproducing steel products and other products.
And we've spoken to them very, very strongly. We've told them, and we have something coming up in the very near future that you know. But we've told them it just can't continue. We have a trade deficit with China that I inherited, by the way. But we had a trade deficit of $504 billion, okay? So if you think of it, when you look at how well they do and how many bridges they're building and how many jets they're building and fighter planes, we did it. We did it. People that sat in my seat allowed them to do this. So we're not going to allow that. We're talking to them right now very strongly, and hopefully we'll have a great relationship, but we're talking to them very strongly, Todd. You're right. It's a big percentage of our deficits, and the money that we've lost and the jobs that we've lost to China, it's unthinkable that people allowed that to happen. And this is over a period, not just Obama, this is over a period of many years this has happened. So thank you very much, Todd. Pat, would you like to say something?
Sure. Thanks very much, Mr. President. I would just urge us to go very, very cautiously here, especially with Section 232. As you know, our defense needs consume about 3% of domestic steel consumption. So I think it's implausible to believe that we're not able to meet the needs of our defense industry, which is absolutely essential. Imports in 2016 were 16% of domestic consumption. So the vast majority of the steel we consume, we in fact produce ourselves, which is the way I prefer it, and it is the case today. China was down to 2% of the 16%, so a very, very small portion. My main message, Mr.
But
President,
they had transshipping.
And
they would ship to other
absolutely.
countries, and their steel would come in from other countries,
Right.
so that you can't see where the steel is coming from.
So what I would urge is any country that is violating our trade laws and our trade agreements, go after them. Countervailing duty,
That's all
anti-dumping,
countries.
if that's happening.
That's all countries.
But when that's but the 232 is a different matter, and invoking national security, when I think it's really hard to make that case, invites retaliation that'll be problematic for us.
Well, the word retaliation, Pat, is interesting, and I know you agree with this. We have so many countries where we make a product, they make a product, we pay a tremendous tax to get into their countries. Motorcycles, Harley Davidson, it goes into a certain country. I won't mention the fact that it happens to be India in this case. And a great gentleman called me from India, and he said, we have just reduced the tariff on motorcycles, reduced it down to 50%, 50, from 75 and even 100%. And we have, if you are Harley Davidson, you have to pay 50 to 75% tariff to get your motorcycle, your product in. And yet they sell thousands and thousands of motorcycles, which a lot of people don't know, from India into the United States. You know what our tax is? Nothing. So I say we should have reciprocal taxes for a case like that. I'm not blaming India. I think it's great that they can get away with it. I don't know why people allowed them to get away with it. But there's an example that's very unfair. And I think we should have a reciprocal tax. That's called fair trade. It's called free trade, because ultimately what's going to happen, either we'll collect the same that they're collecting, or probably what happens is they'll end up not charging a tax and we won't have a tax. And that becomes free trade. So we have too many examples like that, and the word reciprocal, as Pat said, I mean, the word reciprocal is a very important word. We have countries that are taking advantage of us. They're charging us massive tariffs for us to sell our product into those countries. And when they sell to us, zero. We charge them zero. We're like the stupid people. And I don't like to have that anymore. So we're going to change that, and we're going to make it fair. And that, I call that fair trade. And again, one of two things will happen. But I think what's going to happen is they'll just reduce their tax to the same as our tax. Mike, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that worries me with regard to this proposed action is that there's so many things manufactured in the United States, so many jobs attached to so many things manufactured in the United States that use steel and aluminum as inputs. Now, in the case of steel, we're talking about 16% that's imported, but the availability of those imports and the absence of additional duties on those means that those goods can be manufactured and sold more cost effectively. That keeps a whole lot of people, including a whole lot of voters in each of our states, a whole lot in mine certainly, in jobs. And so even though there may be some job winners from an action like this, I strongly suspect that, as has at times been the case in the past, you would end up with net job losses in the United States, and that's what worries me here, particularly in light of the absence of what I can see as a real national security threat. Only 3% of what we're able to produce domestically is what's needed for our national security reasons, and I think that ought to be taken into
That
account.
number's going way up because of our big military spending now. You know, something we all agree on. We had to do a lot of work on our military. Our military has not been taken care of properly, and now it's being taken care of properly. So that 3% number will be going way up. But at the same time, it's not a tremendous, it's not a percent, as a percentage, it's not a tremendous number. I will say this, steel and aluminum are interesting. It will create a lot of jobs. I believe that some of the dumpers will eat a lot of the tax themselves because they do it to keep people working, and we do it for that and other reasons. But I will say that a finished product is a much simpler thing. As an example, Germany sends us cars. We send them cars, they practically don't take them. I mean, how many Chevrolets do you see in the middle of Berlin? Not too many, folks. Not too many. But they send Mercedes, they send BMW, they send them over here in tremendous numbers. Japan sends us tremendous numbers of cars. They also make cars here. And the way there's no tax, all they have to do, Mike, is very simple. They do a factory here, there's no tax. Now all of a sudden there's no tax. So they'll build factories here in order to avoid the tax. But with cars, with television sets, with things like that, where they're dumping them on us. We don't make television sets anymore in this country. They come from South Korea, and they come from, to a lesser extent, Japan. Most of them come from South Korea. It's not fair. And I believe that we should have reciprocal taxes on that. Likewise, that's a different product. That's a much simpler, we did it with the washing machines, as you saw a couple of weeks ago. It's had a huge impact on that industry, a huge impact. And by the way, you know what's happening? The people that made the washing machines outside of this country are now expanding their factories in the United States so they don't have to pay the 25 and 30% tax. And the same thing's happening with the solar panels. We're starting to make, we had 32 companies, I think we're down, Gary, to 2, right? We made solar panels, but every one of our companies was wiped out. And I have to say this, and this is agreed to by, we made a much higher quality, a much better solar panel. We make them better, but we couldn't compete. Now, and we've had a lot of good things. A lot of places are opening up. They're starting to make solar panels again. So with a finished product, it's a little bit different. But again, with steel and aluminum, which is what we're talking about today, it's good. It's a good point, Mike. You're right. The question is, would you rather pay a little bit more and create jobs all over the country? And it's possible you won't be creating. Really, you won't be having much of a problem in terms of pricing, because I actually think a lot of the countries are going to eat it because they want to continue to, export, and they're making a fortune. Look, we have rebuilt China. We have rebuilt a lot of with the money they've taken out of the United States. We're like the piggy bank that had people running it that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we have rebuilt countries like massively. You look at some of these countries. Look at South Korea. Look at Japan. Look at so many countries. And then we defend them on top of everything else. So we defend Saudi Arabia. They pay us a fraction of what it costs. We defend Japan. We defend South Korea. They pay us a fraction of what it costs. And we're talking to all of those countries about that because it's not fair that we defend them and they pay us a fraction of the cost of that defense. Separate argument, but a real problem. Gary, would you like to say something? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have Senator Brown, Senator Peters, Senator Casey, so you've got a good collection from the Finance Committee and the Commerce Committee. I just make 2 points really quickly, Mr. President. The first, yesterday you all released the infrastructure plan, and I looked at it very carefully, and I couldn't see even any incentives, let alone requirements, to use American steel. Now, Senator Brown, I think, always says this is a great opportunity for bipartisanship. If we can work with you on that one, that ought to be a no-brainer.
We can.
And there's one other thing on that point, Mr. President, I'll be very brief. And that is, actually, with respect to American steel, the way the plan reads now, it actually allows the states to walk back from commitments to use American steel. So point 1 would be, could we work with you on that? Point 2 is the Secretary and Ambassador Lighthizer have been very forthcoming in working with us, but we have been trying to see this 232 report, And we appreciate your asking us for our advice. We will need to see that report in order to give you more specifics. But I come back to Senator Brown's point. I think there's an opportunity for real bipartisanship here, and those would be two areas.
I agree, and I'd like you to come back with a suggestion on infrastructure and the plan, and I think that's a bipartisan plan. I will tell you, when I approved the 2 pipelines, the Keystone, and, we did the 2 big ones. And when I approved them, I said, where's the steel being made? And they told me a location that did not make me happy. And I wrote down that from now on, steel is being made for the pipelines. As you know, it's got to be made in the United States, and it's got to be fabricated in the United States. And so I'm a believer in that also. But if you would come back with a suggestion, that'd be great. Bob, what about 232?
Well, I think we can put out the report. But rather than focus on that, let me just say I want to sort of second what the senator says. Trade has always been bipartisan in this country, and just until the last few years. And I really think with this and with NAFTA and the other things we're doing, we can have Democrats and Republicans vote in large numbers together and start a new way to approach this. That really is the point that I wanted to make. I think Senator Brown feels exactly the same.
Can I speak on that too? Thank you. I very much appreciate the work that Ambassador Lighthizer has done generally and specifically on 232, and Secretary Ross's work on 232. And I want to talk for a moment about NAFTA, not too much, but Ambassador Lighthizer has been so good in that. I mean, trade, as he says, has always been nonpartisan, and I think good evidence of that is what Senator Portman, my colleague from Cincinnati, I'm from Cleveland, what we've been able to do together on the Level the Playing Field Act, on trade remedy, on trade enforcement, on currency, and most recently on Clyde, Ohio, on the washing machine case. And we appreciate what you've done here. I sent the president the transition staff 3 days after the election, sent him a letter outlining what we could do together in trade. The president, thank you, sent back a nice handwritten note about that. I appreciate working together on everything from TPP to non-market economy status to 232 to the washing machine case, to all of those issues. And I asked, in the washing machine case, is 3,000 jobs in a small town in Northwest Ohio, an hour away from Toledo. So that really matters to a lot of families. I'm hopeful we can do quick action on 232. It needs to be comprehensive, aimed, as Todd said, certainly at China, but beyond China. 232 needs to apply more broadly. I will just conclude that we can work on NAFTA together. I will work if NAFTA is written in a way that supports workers, as I'm confident it will be, with Ambassador Lighthizer's handprints on it, that we can deliver Democratic support. It will be bipartisan if done right, and that's my reputation, and that's what I'll continue to fight for. And I know Senator Wyden and Senator Casey and Senator Peters are on board with that.
I actually think that we can go bipartisan on infrastructure, maybe even more so than we can on DACA. Because the difference is we want to help DACA, you don't. Okay? I'm kidding. I'm sure you do. I hope we can, by the way, while we're at a table, I hope we can do DACA. That's currently up. Everybody's in there working hard on it right now. I think we have a chance to do DACA very bipartisan. I think that can happen, and I hope we're going to be able to do that, Senator. And I think we will. On infrastructure, which is the purpose of what we're doing today, come back with a proposal. We put in our bid. Come back with a proposal. We have a lot of people that are great Republicans that want something to happen. We have to rebuild our country. You know, I said yesterday, we've spent $7 trillion. When I say spent, and I mean wasted, not to mention all of the lives, most importantly, and everything else, but we've spent $7 trillion as of about 2 months ago in the Middle East. $7 trillion. And if you want to borrow $2 to build a road someplace, including your state, the great state of Ohio, if you want to build a road, if you want to build a tunnel or a bridge or fix a bridge, because so many of them are in bad shape, you can't do it. And yet we spent $7 trillion in the Middle East. Explain that one.
We'll have a bipartisan proposal. We'll have a proposal with real dollars on it and infrastructure, and we're glad to.
We can do it fast.
Work together on a real infrastructure bill with real dollars, plus what you can leverage in the communities and the private sector.
Do a combination.
It needs real dollars.
I would love to have you get back to us quickly, because we can do this quickly, and we have to rebuild our country. We have to rebuild our roads and our bridges and our tunnels. So the faster you get back, the faster we can move. Focus on DACA this week, if you don't mind, right? But the faster you get back, the faster we move. Jackie, you were going to say?
Thank you, Mr. President. Grateful for your willingness to sit down and listen to, and just talk today. But I represent the recreational vehicle industry in northern Indiana, Elkhart County. We have 85% of that market. And I'm a defense hawk. I get what you're saying. I get what we're all saying around this table. We're one of the largest manufacturing districts in this country. And the problem is right now, even the mere, when we look at balance, when we talk about balance, the mere threat of tariffs right now from some of my folks that are manufacturing right now, they employ some 15,000 people just in my district in Indiana. And one of my guys called me this morning and said the mere threat of tariffs right now has already raised aluminum and steel costs by 25%. Canadian softwood has raised 20%. The labor cost to the industry is already up 10 to 15% because the job market's so tight. And this is a market that was 21% unemployment when we really had a financial crisis in this country, and now we're down to 2.1%. Their concern, my concern, is if we seriously have a balanced effort and be able to keep and retain the momentum in a place like northern Indiana and be fair at the same time, I am 100% supportive of what you do. I would just ask that you look at that balance of what it's doing to current employees and giant growth that our tax reform helped just 2 months ago.
But would you have to ask your manufacturers too? And I know some of those manufacturers, they were great to me. And they're friends and they voted and they're great people. But you have to ask them one question. When you build your product and you send that big, beautiful product that they make like nobody else, and you send that to another country, how much tax does that other country charge them? And therefore, they don't sell it there very much because the tax is so high. And one of the things we want to do is we want fairness. We don't want what's been having. Because you look at it and you do well here, but they come in and they compete with you and we take their product for nothing and you want to sell your product overseas, which is probably triple the market for you if you ever could get it. But a lot of our manufacturers have given up. They've given up on that. They don't even talk. I would tell you, Harley Davidson, I was saying, well, what's the story? They were saying it's a 75 and 100% tax. They got used to it for so many years. It's so many years. They weren't even asking me to do this. I mean, I'm doing it for them and others. But they weren't even asking because they've gotten used to it. And your folks have gotten used to it too. Because you take that great product and you sell it overseas, they make it almost impossible for you to do that. Not only monetarily with the tax, but they also have other criteria which make it impossible.
I understand, but I would say, Mr. President, there's also the second issue that has developed in this country with these corporations and producing the quality vehicles that they do is the true American smelters left. And in reference to the costs here, they won't even fill the products of some of these customers because they don't have to, because they got people standing in line to buy. There's so few, right? Good. So if you can't buy the specs, you're out of a job.
No, I agree. We want a combination of big competition, including competition from within our country, competing against them. And we want to take outside sources, but we want competition and we want the jobs.
And the customer service.
And we want customer service. That's right. Any questions? Yes, Senator Lamar.
Mr. President, thank you so much for.
How's healthcare going?
Good, thanks. Good. And thank you for your support and for sticking with us. I talked to Senator Murray about it earlier, and we're making progress. Good. Thank you very much, and thanks to the Vice President for his work on that. If I could use 2 60-second stories, just I don't know exactly what the tariff is proposed, and I thank you for having us down here before you've made your decisions.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know what you're watching. If you're joining us on the stream, welcome. I'm Molly Live inside of Fox 5 DC's digital newsroom. On the right, you have President Trump. He's speaking with some of his cabinet members. I know they're discussing jobs and whatnot. A variety of topics. This came in to us from a few hours ago. And then below my screen right here is a picture outside the World Wildlife Fund. Now that is an office building on 24th Street Northwest. Is in the Foggy Bottom DuPont area of DC. It houses a bunch of different offices, but it includes former President Barack Obama's former office, to which a suspicious package possibly was mailed with some suspicious white powder inside. It looks like that scene is a little bit wrapping up, and there are hopefully some good conclusions coming out of that and nothing to be alarmed about. But as soon as I have more information on that, I'll bring that to you. We did send one of our reporters down there, so if he has anything coming in, I'll be checking his tweets and hear from him hopefully shortly. But it does look like that event is winding down. But just so you know that those are pictures, live pictures outside the World Wildlife Fund. organization building in DC. And then, of course, we're going to kind of pepper in some footage from Mardi Gras, as it is Fat Tuesday. I don't have any footage right now with sound, unfortunately. Was hoping to get some cool video with the music and the parade. But once I do find that for you guys, whether it's from the official Mardi Gras site or another Fox affiliate that we have sending us that, we'll bring that to you as well. So just keeping you in the loop of what's going on here. Two scenes right here. We'll bring up the volume on President Trump. We'll keep this shot outside the World Wildlife Fund here just in case anything comes about from this, but hopefully that is wrapping up and there is nothing to be seriously alarmed about with that suspicious package.
So now we're lucky enough there to be making auto parts from aluminum for cars. Jobs are coming back up, but if we put a tariff on the ingots that come in from overseas, that'll raise the prices. That will hurt. Our aluminum comes from Canada, none from China. So I hope you'll look carefully at where the aluminum comes from. Okay. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Right. Now I have to say this, Canada has treated us very, very unfairly when it comes to lumber and timber, very unfairly. So we have to understand that. You know, it's not just one thing or another. Canada has been very tough on this country when it comes to timber, lumber, and other things. And they have not been easy when it comes to Wisconsin and our farmers. Because you try and ship product into Canada, if you're a farmer, if you are a farmer up in Wisconsin and other places, you try and ship your things up to Canada, it's been a very tough situation for them, I will say that. But I agree with what you're saying. It's very much a double-edged sword. Ron?
You mentioned Wisconsin, so you understand. Yeah, I was obviously in manufacturing for 30-some years, and I've exported a lot of products. So the fact of the matter is, Mr. President, Wisconsin operates a trade surplus with both Canada and Mexico because we not only export manufacturing products but also agricultural products, and trade works very well for Wisconsin. I agree with the concerns that you've expressed, as well as the concerns of Senator Toomey and Senator Lee. What we have is the basic root cause of this problem is a massive overcapacity, primarily in China. That's true. How do you address that? And I think we need to be very cautious without raising prices. Senator Alexander was talking about 2002. Spot prices increased somewhere between 69 and 82%. Producer prices went up from 19 to 27%. Now, let me add just another dimension to this that nobody's really talked about. We talk about jobs, absolutely. We want the highest paying jobs. I think our tax reform is going to juice the economy, and with such a tight labor market, I think wages are already increasing. In Wisconsin, a big manufacturing state, in 7 years, I have not visited one manufacturer that can hire enough people. That's certainly my experience in the last 20, 25 years. For a host of reasons, we tell our kids have to get a four-year degree. We pay people not to work. So we do need to be concerned about, in such a tight labor market, do we have enough workers in manufacturing? So my final point is, it makes no sense to me to try and bring back high labor content manufacturing to America. We need to do the value-added things. And so I just say proceed with real caution. There are trade abuses, address those, attack those, try and figure out how to address this massive oversupply in the steel industry, but do it very carefully because we have experience.
Right, I agree with you 100%. I do have to say that we do have a pool of 100 million people, of which many of them want to work. They want to have a job. A lot of them do better not working, frankly, under the laws. And people don't like to talk about it, but you're competing against government. And they have great potential. They sort of want to work, but they're making less if they work than if they stay home and do other things. So we have to address that situation. That's a big problem. But we have a pool of 100 million people, a lot of whom want to work. We will also have a very much more merit-based immigration policy where we're going to bring in people that are going to be great workers and going to really fill up Foxconn and all of the places. Like I was very instrumental in getting you Foxconn, as you know, through my friendships with that great company. And they're going to Wisconsin. It's going to be incredible. They're going to employ tremendous numbers of people. They're going to build one of the biggest plants in the world. So it's going to be very exciting. But people will move there. But we do have a big pool of people that want to work, and they can. Just to address the one other point, we have a trade deficit with Canada. we have a big imbalance of at least $17 billion. And with Mexico, we have an imbalance. We have a trade deficit of $71 billion, and I believe that number is really much higher than that. I might ask Bob Lighthizer to just discuss that, but were you going to say one other thing, Ron?
As long as you brought up the whole immigration debate, there is absolutely no doubt that we have to fix our horribly broken legal immigration system. One of my proposals is literally a 3-year guest worker visa program managed by the states. Let the states determine, what industries they can set the wage rates, and they can completely control that process. So I'm hoping as part of this bipartisan process that we actually fix our horribly broken legal immigration system so we do have the workers, and it has to be merit-based. So I'd ask my Democratic colleagues, please work with us. Let's fix the dreamer problem, but let's also fix our horribly broken legal immigration system.
Thank you, Ron. Yes, go ahead.
Just want to make a point about back to 232. I'll focus on steel, 232 in Pennsylvania. In your opening, you talked about the job impact as well as the national security impact. I'm glad you raised both. I'll just focus on national security. In western Pennsylvania, as well as in eastern Pennsylvania, you have two examples among several, but the two are AK Steel in western Pennsylvania. They are the last remaining manufacturer of electrical steel, meaning the steel that goes into our electricity grid. They've been hammered by this, as you know. In the eastern part of the state, as Senator Young from Indiana mentioned, ArcelorMittal.
Bob, they've been hammered by what?
Hammered by not having the remedy of the 232 remedy.
Okay, fine.
So, to the extent that you can focus on that, I think the steel executives, the letter they sent you on the 1st of February, I think outlines the problem. But this really is a national security issue.
Why didn't the previous administration help the steel workers? Why didn't the previous administration work on 232?
Well, I think there are a lot of us that had disagreements over the years with the administration then about being more aggressive on these
Tremendous
issues.
disservice.
I just hope that in this, I know it's a 90-day period you're
Right.
within, but I hope you can promptly determine it.
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Rob?
Mr. President, I agree with Bob that that's a good example. AK Steel was the last electrical steel manufacturer, 101% increase over the last year in electrical steel coming into our country. It's a small market, but it's a critical market. They tell us that if they don't get relief, they're going to pull out of this business, so we won't have the steel that goes into our transformers and our grid. And so I think it is a good example, but what I would say, sir, and we've talked about this before, any response here needs to be targeted, and electrical steel is a place to target it. The other place, I think, is the oil country product that was talked about earlier. This is pipe and tube, 82% increase there. And, frankly, most of it's coming from Korea, and Korea doesn't have a single rig. In other words, they're taking Chinese steel for the most part, and it's in effect transshipping it to us.
They're doing a lot of transshipping.
And that's hurting our ability to continue to have this energy independence we talked about. So those are two specific areas where I do think that there's an opportunity to do something, and to use 232, which is a national security, as opposed to 201, which is what President Bush used.
Good.
But let me tell you, with regard to rolled steel and with regard to other products, as Senator Brown said, we've had some pretty good success by going after them with regard to unfair trade practices. And that's the Level the Playing Field Act, which is just now being implemented. And as I've told you before, I think even stronger enforcement of that would be great, because that will enable us to...
Well, they had very little enforcement before. We're very strongly enforcing it now. And Wilbur, you might want to talk about that, but we are very strongly. But they have had not good enforcement previous to this.
The second part of this, and you're right, is with regard to the Enforce Act.
Right.
And that's, and again, Ron Wyden and Senator Brown and I and others have worked on this, but what it says is that if a country transships, in other words, sends their steel, say, to Malaysia, which we believe happens with regard to Chinese steel, puts a different stamp on it, made in Malaysia, then sends it here, we need to be more aggressive in going after them. And it's just a matter of Customs and Border Protection having so many other responsibilities right now, but we can do more with our existing laws as well. And I think 232 is part of the overall response, but it needs to be targeted. I agree with what Senator Alexander and others have said about the balance, Senator Toomey and others. You got to be careful because we don't want to increase the cost to our consumers of all these steel products that go into our other manufacturing. But there are areas like electrical, like pipe and tube, where we've got to stand up and help to defend, in the case of electrical, our last American manufacturer.
Right. Well, Rob, we have steel coming into our country from countries that don't even know what steel is. They don't make it. They never made it. It's transshipping. It's coming from China and some others, but mostly from China. and they send it through countries that don't make steel, and it comes pouring into our country, and free. And it's a very bad situation. Kevin?
Yes, so one, I think everyone in this room supports you aggressively holding China accountable for its overcapacity in a major way. Thank you for that. 232 is a little like old-fashioned chemotherapy. It isn't used as much because it can often do as much damage as good. And an example, it happens all around the country, but we send steel pellets from Corpus Christi over to Austria to this company that does this amazing job, super refined, specific job. We bring it back to Navasota, Texas, in my district, refine it even further, sell it to many American energy companies who use that specialized steel to compete and win against Russia and China and all the other countries. If transactions like that are pretty typical around the country get caught up, in that case, we punished 3 American manufacturing industries for that, all of whom, by the way, are looking at expanding because of your tax reform plan. Right. And so my point is, so we have to be really targeted. You have to be really targeted here. Also, we've got allies with us against China's unfair trade practices. We have to be careful as you look at these decisions to target it to make sure our allies are with us as we do this.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Kevin.
Rick? Senator Peter? Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing I want to point out. Thank you. We've had the conversation about the national security imperative, and I think we've looked at it in the context of the defense industry. And I just want to add one thing to that. It's our ability to address our own inputs, not just addressing the needs of the defense industry, but our ability to produce for our own consumption as we take on infrastructure projects and so on. That's right. So I think we don't just need to focus on those percentages, but also broadly how this impacts our ability to provide for our own inputs. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, 74% capacity right now here in the United States, the steel industry is losing market share, and that translates to economic loss in communities. As Representative Bost, he and I co-chair the Steel Caucus, and so we're very keenly aware of what this can do to these communities when we don't have that kind of certainty.
Good. Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. Senator?
Hey, Mr. President, I appreciated your comments about Michigan and the auto industry. I'd like to say that a big reason why those jobs are coming back is because we have the best workers anywhere in the world here in the United States, and certainly here. And they can build it on time and build it with outstanding quality as long as the rules are fair. So I appreciate this issue, and it should be bipartisan.
Great workers. The problem is you didn't have good policy, and that's why so many jobs left, but now they're coming back, and they like coming back to Michigan.
They love coming back to Michigan as long as we have fair rules, and so we have to continue to push this forward. I'd like to pick up on Senator Alexander's comments too, is that we also have to be concerned about the auto parts industry as well. We have probably more jobs in auto parts in Michigan than any other of the industrial sectors, so they all go together. We've got to deal with the steel pricing issue. I agree with everything that's been said here, but then we can't have the dumping of auto parts that will take away Michigan jobs as well as jobs around the country. And if I could just bring up one other issue that I think we should take a look at, and I'm working in a bipartisan way with Senator Burr on an issue related to the Commerce Department having the ability to self-initiate trade enforcement actions smaller than industries like steel or aluminum or washing machines, is that we have small businesses that don't have the resources, quite frankly, to bring a trade enforcement case, to go through the lawyers to do that. Michigan, for example, we have cherries. Right now we've got the dumping of cherries. That's making it very difficult for our growers in Michigan, but they don't have the resources to bring those kinds of enforcement actions. So we're working on legislation to give Secretary Ross, the Department of Commerce, more tools to help our small businesses, and I'd love to have your help.
You have my help. I think it's a fantastic idea. Because you're right, they can't hire the lawyers. It's too small, but it's, in a double way, it's very, very big. Wilbur, are you working on that?
Yes, sir. As you know, we, for the first time in many years, Commerce Department did self-initiate. Happened it was in a big industry, it was in aluminum. But there are limitations to what a conventional trade case can do. And the main limitation is it doesn't prevent people from the transshipment through other countries. A lot of what 232 can do for us is to solve that problem. And 232 doesn't have to mean the same tariff on every single country, doesn't have to mean the same tariff on every single product. It can be applied in a much more surgical way And we presented the president with a range of alternatives that goes from a big tariff on everything from everywhere to very selective tariffs from a very selected group of countries. There are one or two countries that figure quite prominently in all of the lists, and those names will come as no surprise to you. But for example...
And the problem you have with that, though, is transshipping. You think you're going to put a pinpoint on a country, but then they ship it to other countries that you're not even thinking about, so you have to be careful with it.
So what the 232 would let us do is to have quotas on the countries that we weren't putting a tariff. Put a quota, say, at what they're shipping in now. So it's not going to restrict supply, but it would prevent the evildoers from transshipping more goods through that country. So
Evildoers, that's a good word, of which there are many.
Yes, there are.
Right. You're doing a good job, Wilbur, thank you. Been very, we've been tough. Go ahead, fellas.
Mr. President, the comments that have been made today about balance is absolutely essential. I mean, managing job creation and controlling cost at the same time has got to be the major factors in this mix. 2 points
And
that I'll make.
deficits too?
Absolutely.
You know, there are some people don't believe in deficits. They think it doesn't matter. To me, I think it matters a lot.
I think it matters a lot. 2 points that I'll make. One, to kind of put a stamp on what Senator Portman said, AK Steel is the only manufacturer in America that makes the electrical steel that is necessary for the transformers that feed and produce electricity in our electric grid. China, we are at risk of losing that industry, and if we lose that, we are absolutely potentially at hostage by the Chinese for management and maintenance of our electrical grid. Number two, you've made a big case, and I think you have rightfully so, told the world that America is open for business, and the regulatory reforms that you've done, the tax reforms that you have done, has put America back in business. One of the biggest businesses that is promoting job creation today is the oil and gas industry.
Right.
And in eastern and southeastern Ohio, big projects like ethane cracker plants, they require a tremendous amount of steel. We've got to make sure that whatever we do in this formula keeps cost down, because those projects are huge. I mean, they are massive. You're talking about $6 to $8 billion projects, and big cost increases in steel could be a big deal. So we got to balance the job creation with the cost.
I agree, and I know that area very well. You're right. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. At home in southeast Missouri, we have a real example of where we lost 900 jobs in March of 2016 because our aluminum smelter closed. And I believe that these aluminum smelters can be reopened. I don't follow underneath the premise.
And for a different reason too. Because of what we've done, our energy prices are going so low, our electric costs are going so low, that other countries aren't going to be able to compete with us. We're really doing a great job of bringing them down. And a lot of that had to do with the tax cuts, but it has to do with lots of other things too.
Exactly.
So go ahead, tell me about that.
When you look at southeast Missouri, the median income household is $40,000. It's one of the poorest congressional districts in the country. And when we lost 900 jobs with the average salary of $70,000 a year, that hit home in the Boot Hill of Missouri. And without a doubt, if you just look at the numbers of the aluminum production in China, that in 2000 was 10% of the world's production, and in 2015 was 54%. There's a problem, Mr. President, and I believe that we can have the production back, and we have a vacant facility in New Madrid, Missouri, that we want to open, and we want to create more jobs. And I applaud you for looking at 232 and looking at a reasonable approach to make sure that we're open for business in all industries, not just one.
Well, we all have to remember that there is no tax or there is no tariff if they come in and build plants in this country. So there is no, we're just talking about something, but there is nothing. Steel's a little bit different than a car. It's a little bit different than a washing machine or any of the other things that we're doing or talking about doing. But nevertheless, you build your factory, you build your plant in the United States, there is no tax. So that's a big difference. That's why I think you're going to see General Motors, they're coming back. A lot of companies are coming back, and they're coming back to areas that you represent. It's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. Maybe I'll just have Bob finish up. Do you want to do that? Roy, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, in like the AK Steel, though, we need to be very careful here. There is only one American producer, but there are lots of American buyers. Those electric motors in the washing machine, the generators, the grid, all of that is dependent currently on a lot of electric steel coming from somewhere else. I think the balance of keeping that company in business while you keep all these other companies, it's going to take a long time to either expand or have more competitors here. So we need to be very thoughtful about all the other buyers of that product that has only one American source. So it is a great example, but it's a great example to remember that washing machine motor as well as all the other things that electric steel is used for, sir.
Good point. The word balance is a very important point.
Can I have one
Yes, go
point,
ahead.
taking off on, on what Roy said, and as you and Secretary Ross apply 232, and I understand the cautionary notes from some of my colleagues, I think it's important that we always keep in mind China's excess capacity, and China's excess capacity doesn't mean you aim 232 just at China, because China's excess capacity, as you pointed out, is spread elsewhere. And the best example was your comment on oil country tubular steel through Korea. And as Rob said, Korea doesn't drill itself. It just is the the pass-through point. But because China's excess capacity is in some ways infected steel production or steel sales, not production, throughout the world, it's important that 232 be aimed at China's excess capacity and countries all over the world.
Right. I agree with that. Maybe you could just a very brief discussion of where you are with NAFTA, because this is a group that's very interested in NAFTA.
Well, I've spoken to some of these members here, Mr. President. I think we're making progress on NAFTA. There was a lot of anxiety at one point as to whether or not we'd be in a position where we would have to withdraw in order to get a good agreement. Our view is, number one, that NAFTA has not served the United States well in all respects. It has served some people very well, but other people, and overall, it has not done a good job. I think we're making real headway. I feel like, particularly with respect to the Mexicans, that we are making headway. We have a number of issues that we still have to work our way through, but I'm hopeful that we'll be in the position, and I think the most important, to get a good deal, one that you'll find acceptable, but most importantly, I want it to be an agreement that the vast majority of Republicans and Democrats support. I think this is very important that we have a new paradigm in steel, that we get 20 or 25 Democrats in the Senate and a large number of them in the House to vote for this deal, and I as well as, of course, the larger, and I think that's very much in reach, something that we can do.
Well, I want to thank everybody very much. I really would like to see you come back with a counter proposal on the infrastructure. I think we're going to get that done. I really believe that's we're going to get a lot of Democrats. We're going to get a lot of Republicans. We're going to get it done. It's something we should do. We have to fix our country. We have to fix our roads and our tunnels and bridges and everything. So if you can, work together on that. And I am ready, willing, and able. It's very important. And then, of course, this week, I know you're working very hard on DACA. Everybody in the room wants DACA. And let's see if we can get that done. And it would be a great achievement. They've been talking about it for many years. And if we could do it, it would be a great achievement, and it would be something on a humane basis would be excellent. So I want to thank you all for being here. If you have any suggestions, call me, call Gary, call Wilbur, call Bob. But I very much appreciate you being here. And if it's necessary, we'll have another meeting to iron out some points. But on infrastructure, that is such a natural for us to get done, and I think we can probably do it. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
President, do you believe Rob Porter's ex-wives? Do you believe Rob Porter's ex-wives?
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do you believe Rob Porter's ex-wives, Mr. President?
Perfect tone, perfect.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so President Trump inside the White House, kind of a longer meeting there discussing a variety of different topics, and usually he'll stay around and answer some of the reporters' questions, but no answers for us there today, so the camera will pull out. But right below my face here is this Earth Cam, courtesy of Earth Cam, a picture of Bourbon Street, or what is really the cross street between Bourbon Street and St. Peter's Street down in New Orleans. I'm gonna take this full picture for you. Again, courtesy of Earth Cam. We don't have any sound on this, unfortunately, because of the rights for some of the karaoke songs that are being sung, because this is the corner, very famous corner during Mardi Gras, right outside the famous Cat's Meow karaoke bar where people are performing and hanging out and having fun this Mardi Gras. Now, I want to mention, as we've been kind of jumping in and out of Mardi Gras feeds, some of them have been good, more interesting than others, some of the parades, some of the interviews with no music, unfortunately. A good friend of mine was down there. Unfortunately, he was just jumping on a plane to leave his celebration, but I want to let you know what he said. He mentioned that he was up till overnight. He was up all night until 6 a.m. at the famous bar. Where was he at? The Boot, which is a 2-lane bar, and he was up all night, and they went to the parade at 8 a.m. But preceding the parade this morning and preceding his flight out, he was up until 6 a.m. when they do the famous moment tequila sunrise. They count down to 6 a.m. and they cut the lights, and everybody goes nuts and they cheer, which means we all made it to another Mardi Gras. The DJ is rocking, and the lights come on when you're outside because you're all dark in this kind of cordoned off area, and then you go outside and suddenly it's bright out and you're like, hey, it's Tuesday morning, I made it, it's Mardi Gras. And so that was my good friend Joe's report. He was doing the famous tequila sunrise down there into this morning's sunrise, and unfortunately he had to board a plane to come back today, so he wasn't able to Skype with me from the scene. I was really hoping to get a nice little input from him from a Skype coverage or something from the streets with some sound, so we had a little bit of sort of insight as to what we were hearing. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, on digital, due to rights, we can't bring up certain music, so we got these video cams. Again, this one's courtesy of Earth Cam, and if we have other ones come up, I'll bring those up for you. But from there, guys, let's just kind of check into the parade scene and what it looks like, everybody dressed up, all the costumes, as we continue it on this Fat Tuesday here, Tuesday, February 13th. Enjoy the scene for just a little bit. Hey guys, inside the newsroom here. Looks like we are continuing on with these live pictures from Mardi Gras in New Orleans, but we're also getting some more pics inside the White House for that White House trade meeting. It looks like Vice President Pence, who spoke earlier at the National African American Museum of History and Culture, is back in this meeting. Now, he was in South Korea earlier this week for the opening ceremonies, and he's been sort of all over. So he's speaking now. Let's bring up that picture. We'll bring you the dual shot here so you can keep your eyes on this famous corner of Bourbon Street and St. Peter's Street in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Celebrations, festivities, all the revelry continues throughout the day. We'll bring up this sound here on the Vice President and then bring you both pictures.
Like I said, I want to hear from both sides. This is why we have a lot of great representatives, both Democrats and Republicans. I want to hear from both sides before we make the decision. In one case, you're going to create jobs. You may have a higher price, maybe a little bit higher, but you're going to have jobs. In the other case, you may have a lower price, but you're not going to have jobs. It's going to be made in China and other places. So those are big decisions, but to me, jobs are very important. Todd, do you have something to say?
Mr. President, thank you for having us here today. I represent a state that is not only a major manufacturer of steel. We have U.S. Steel,
right,
ArcelorMittal, and others who are manufacturing it. But we have the downstream users, which you alluded to. So clearly, you understand the need to balance the two, come up with a balanced approach here. I think the main target, and I'll just speak plainly with you, sir, should be China. They're violating the international rules, stealing our intellectual property, overproducing steel products and other products.
And we've spoken to them very, very strongly. We've told them that we have something coming up in the very near future that you know. And but we've told them it just can't continue. We have a trade deficit with China that I inherited, by the way. But we had a trade deficit of $504 billion, okay? So if you think of it, when you look at how well they do and how many bridges they're building and how many jets they're building and fighter planes, we did it. We did it. People that sat in my seat allowed them to do this. So we're not going to allow that. We're talking to them right now very strongly, and hopefully we'll have a great relationship, but we're talking to them very strongly. Todd, you're right. It's a big percentage of our deficits, and the money that we've lost and the jobs that we've lost to China, it's unthinkable that people allow that to happen. And this is over a period, not just Obama, this is over a period of many years this has happened. So thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you.
Pat, would you like to say
Sure.
something?
Thanks very much, Mr. President. I would just urge us to go very, very cautiously here, especially with Section 232. As you know, our defense needs consume about 3% of domestic steel consumption. So I think it's implausible to believe that we're not able to meet the needs of our defense industry, which is absolutely essential. Imports in 2016 were 16% of domestic consumption. So the vast majority of the steel we consume, we in fact produce ourselves, which is the way I prefer it, and it is the case today. China was down to 2% of the 16%, so a very, very small portion. My main message,
But they had transhipping.
And
they would ship to other
absolutely.
countries, and their steel would come in from other countries,
Right.
so that you can't see where the steel is coming from.
So what I would urge is any country that is violating our trade laws and our trade agreements, go after them. Countervailing duty,
That's all countries.
if that's happening.
That's all countries.
But when that's but the 232 is a different matter, and invoking national security, when I think it's really hard to make that case, invites retaliation. That'll be problematic for us.
Well, the word retaliation, Pat, is interesting, and I know you agree with us. We have so many countries where we make a product, they make a product, we pay a tremendous tax to get into their countries. Motorcycles, Harley Davidson. It goes into a certain country. I won't mention the fact that it happens to be India in this case. And a great gentleman called me from India, and he said, we have just reduced the tariff on motorcycles. Reduced it down to 50%, 5-0, from 75 and even 100%. And we have, if you are Harley Davidson, you have to pay 50 to 75% tariff to get your motorcycle, your product in. And yet they sell thousands and thousands of motorcycles, which a lot of people don't know, from India into the United States. You know what our tax is? Nothing. So I say we should have reciprocal taxes for a case like that. I'm not blaming India. I think it's great that they can get away with it. I don't know why people allowed them to get away with it. But there's an example that's very unfair. And I think we should have a reciprocal tax. That's called fair trade. It's called free trade, because ultimately what's going to happen, either we'll collect the same that they're collecting, or probably what happens is they'll end up not charging a tax and we won't have a tax. And that becomes free trade. So we have too many examples like that, and the word reciprocal, as Pat said, I mean, the word reciprocal is a very important word. We have countries that are taking advantage of us. They're charging us massive tariffs for us to sell our product into those countries, and when they sell to us, zero. We charge them zero. We're like the stupid people, and I don't like to have that anymore. So we're going to change that, and we're going to make it fair. And that, I call that fair trade. And again, one of two things will happen, but I think what's going to happen is they'll just reduce their tax to the same as our tax. Mike, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that worries me with regard to this proposed action is that there's so many things manufactured in the United States, so many jobs attached to so many things manufactured in the United States that use steel and aluminum as inputs. Now, in the case of steel, we're talking about 16% that's imported, but the availability of those imports and the absence of additional duties on those means that those goods can be manufactured and sold more cost effectively. That keeps a whole lot of people, including a whole lot of voters in each of our states, a whole lot in mine certainly, in jobs. And so even though there may be some job winners from an action like this, right, I strongly suspect that, as has at times been the case in the past, you would end up with net job losses in the United States, and that's what worries me here, particularly in light of the absence of what I can see as a real national security threat. Only 3% of what we're able to produce domestically is what's needed for our national security reasons, and I think that ought to be taken into account.
Now, that number's going way up because of our big military spending now. You know, something we all agree on. We had to do a lot of work for our military. Our military has not been taken care of properly, and now it's being taken care of properly. So that 3% number will be going way up. But at the same time, it's not a tremendous, it's not a percent, as a percentage, it's not a tremendous number. I will say that steel and aluminum are interesting. It will create a lot of jobs. I believe that some of the dumpers will eat a lot of the tax themselves because they do it to keep people working, and we do it for that and other reasons. But I will say that a finished product is a much simpler thing. As an example, Germany sends us cars. We send them cars, they practically don't take them. I mean, how many Chevrolets do you see in the middle of Berlin? Not too many, folks. Not too many. But they send Mercedes, they send BMW, they send them over here in tremendous numbers. Japan sends us tremendous numbers of cars. They also make cars. And the way there's no tax, all they have to do, Mike, is very simple. They do a factory here, there's no tax. Now all of a sudden there's no tax. So they'll build factories here in order to avoid the tax. But with cars, with television sets, with things like that, where they're dumping them on us, we don't make television sets anymore in this country. They come from South Korea, and they come from, to a lesser extent, Japan. Most of them come from South Korea. It's not fair. And I believe that we should have reciprocal taxes on that. Likewise. That's a different product. That's a much simpler, we did it with the washing machines, as you saw a couple of weeks ago. It's had a huge impact on that industry, a huge impact. And by the way, you know what's happening? The people that made the washing machines outside of this country are now expanding their
Guys, I want to pop in here from the newsroom and talk to you about the story that we were reporting earlier about the developing situation in the DuPont area of D.C., where some type of powdery substance, a suspicious substance, was mailed to the World Wildlife Foundation. Now, we sent our reporter, Tom Fitzgerald, out there, and I'm going to quickly flip over to the recent tweet that he put up. Here it is, and there it is, developing DC Fire and EMS, a battalion chief saying that the letter was mailed to the World Wildlife Foundation. Now, that building happens to also house President Obama's former office. Turns out the letter from Hong Kong had no return address. It contained baby powder, so developing good news in that story that it is not a dangerous substance, and they have cleared that situation, that scene there. We saw the cameras kind of roll out, so we suspected there was some conclusion of that event and it was okay. Turns out now we are kind of seeing that confirmation there from Fitz, who reported back to say that that is the situation. The letter contained baby powder. So some good news to kind of end the show, guys. We're gonna leave you with this shot of Mardi Gras. Let the good times roll down there in New Orleans. We're going to leave you with that and a little bit of music, but happy Fat Tuesday, happy Mardi Gras. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow as we start the beginning of the Lenten season, going into Easter, tomorrow being Ash Wednesday, of course, coinciding with Valentine's Day. So a special holiday week in very many ways for us today. So some good news to end the show. Thank you guys for hanging out on our stream today, and thanks for all your comments and chatter. It's really great to hear from all of you, wherever you are watching from. I know everyone's from all different areas. So enjoy these shots of Mardi Gras. We'll put up a little bit of music and let you guys enjoy. Talk to you tomorrow.